to the town of Albertville in the French Alps. That's where local prosecutor Patrick Kinsey is giving out details on the investigation into the accident of Formula One champ Michael Schumacher. Let's listen.
Progress of the investigation commenced after the skiing accident of Mr. Schumacher on the 29th of December at Maryville. I must add also that no false information should be disseminated on whatever I say here or on the continuation of the inquiry. The members of the Schumacher family have also asked that their peace of mind be preserved and also the nature of the communications that they can have between themselves and their friends and relatives. We have not been able to accommodate all of the journalists in this room. There's another room next to this also where journalists are gathered, and I should like to ask those journalists who are not within this particular room to accept our apologies. This room is not large enough, but let me tell you all that this press conference is being broadcast live by several television stations over the internet. This press conference shall not last more than a half hour. First of all, I will tell you about the state of progress of the investigation. And secondly, with the investigators present here, we will give answers to whatever questions you may put to us. The investigation service is the Gendarmerie of Haute-Savoie, represented by Colonel Frank, sitting next to me. The investigation research of Haute-Savoie Gendarmerie is represented by Lieutenant Colonel Villemin, Lieutenant Colonel Cress on my right. The Gendarmerie crew also of Haute-Savoie is represented by Commander Bozon, and the Gendarmerie station of Maribel is represented by Mr. Martineau. For the purposes of translation, there are two interpreters with us, one who will interpret into English and another one into German. Now, on the investigation itself, we've made progress, considerable progress. We have carried out a certain number, we've heard a certain number of people, the ski renters, the doctors, the witnesses, people who were skiing on the slopes. We also went to the accident site to see for ourselves what the site was like. We carried out an expertise of the skiing equipment that had been used. There was a camera mounted on Mr. Schumacher's helmet, the footage of which has been viewed. We still have to view it sequence by sequence or image by image, if you will, in order to be able to determine specifically and with the greatest accuracy possible exactly where the accident took place on the edge of the slope and the speed at which Mr. Schumacher was skiing. I have heard that there is a skier who also took footage of Mr. Schumacher coming down that slope. I do not know about this. I've read about that in the news or in magazine Der Spiegel, but to date we have not received any such footage, and I personally remain rather doubtful as regards that particular source. I must also indicate, since I've had questions put to me about this, that within the framework of this investigation, we're carrying out exactly the same inquiries as we would do whenever a serious accident takes place. We're lucky enough to have available two highly qualified investigative services specialized in all of the fields relative to mountain accidents. Every winter, we carry out some 50 investigations of this nature. always with the same people, the same services, the same equipment, the same wherewithal. We always carry out the same investigation, pay the same attention to the circumstances, carry out the same tests with the same rigor and the same analyses, and all within very strict legal limitations. Let me now deal with the facts with which you're all acquainted. I've obviously been reading all the information that you've been providing on this very attentively. On the 29th of December at 11 a.m., on the Solia piste at Maribel, Les Alleux, at an altitude of 2,700 meters, Mr. Schumacher was going down the slope up until an intersection with two other slopes, a red run called Chamois and another one called Biche. He took the red piste on the left of it. And then at one point he found himself in an off-piste section. He was then doing what the skiers call a large slam. He was a very good skier, and he was about 3 to 6 meters of the marked slope. At one point, his ski hit a rock. He lost his balance and fell forward. And with his head, he hit a rock some 3 meters 50 down the slope. That rock on which he hit his head is 8 meters from the edge of the marked slope. Mr. Schumacher remained inanimate on the ground, and he was to be found 9 meters from the edge of the slope. These are the material facts. We have carried out an examination of the footage from the camera mounted on the helmet. It's perfectly visible, provides many elements, in fact, bears out many of the elements that we already had in our possession. We obviously take advantage of this film in order to place ourselves in the exact circumstances of the accident. And thanks to that, we know exactly what was the itinerary taken by Mr. Schumacher. That's as far as we've got today. This footage will be the subject of a record carried out by a technician and one of our gendarmes, who is a mountain expert, who's a ski instructor himself and a mountain guide. And in this way, I'm sure that we'll be able to establish with the greatest accuracy possible the exact facts surrounding the accident, the circumstances and the cause. That's how, as far as we've got today. Now, if you will, I open the floor for any questions that you may care to put to us. Yes, sir. Will you introduce yourself, please, and stand up and introduce yourself?
Pardon? Oui, excusez-moi, moi j'avais pas prévu qu'il y ait autant de micros à une telle hauteur.
I'm sorry, I hadn't realized that there would be so many microphones in front of me. So I'll sit up so you can see my head.
Oui, je vous écoute, monsieur.
Yes, sir, please.
Bonjour.
BFM TV. 2 questions. Have you any elements about the speed of Mr. Schumacher when he took the fall? Did he know that he was doing off-piste skiing? Do you know about this? And how about the slope on the edge of which he was skiing? Was it sufficiently well marked? I think I understood your question. On speed, I've seen the footage. The investigators are very well acquainted with it and are viewing it carefully right now. It's very difficult for me right now to tell you what the exact speed was. I think that Commander Boson is probably the person who's in the best position to tell us how one can evaluate the speed at which Mr. Schumacher was skiing. Commander, please.
Monsieur Schumacher, à l'évidence, est un très bon skieur.
Mr. Schumacher is a very good skier. He was skiing on the left of the marked slope. He was on a very steep slope. He was doing tight slamming down that slope, parallel obviously to the slope, to the marked slope. It's impossible to give you a figure as to what the exact speed was, but it was the speed of a good skier going down on a steep slope. The nature of the slope didn't allow him either to make very tight curves down the slope, and he remained facing the slope as he went down. As to whether the run was marked or not, I was going to answer that question, Commander, if you allow me. The second question, as you know, there are some French standards that laid down the rules that apply as far as safety, signaling, marking, information. And the observations we have carried out show that these standards were complied with. Commander, you wanted to make an additional comment on this subject? The marking was indeed in keeping with the rules applicable. There were markings all the way down the run at regular intervals. But Mr. Schumacher was not going down a regular run. He was doing off-piste skiing, where obviously there are some dangers that are not found on regular packed snow slopes. I'm from Germany. I wanted to know whether you have any other information concerning the condition of the skis, the safety releases on the skis, and Mr. Schumacher's helmet. And so, well, all of this equipment was given to us. It's all being duly investigated, entrusted to a team of people from Lenza, that is the National School of Skiing and Mountain Climbing of Chamonix. These people are specialized in studying and analyzing and testing all mountain equipment. I don't think that there is any better, more qualified group of people than this one. We shall have the results of their testing a few days from now. I cannot tell you exactly why. However, we already have some idea on the basis of some of the initial observations made. Mr. Boson, again, would be the person with the most information about this. Mr. Boson, if you can tell us something about the skis and the helmet. The skis were in perfect condition, practically new. The skis are not the cause of the accident. That is clear. However, as the prosecutors have said, we have seen the tracks left by the skis, and these corroborate the fact that he hit a boulder or a stone, and this is the reason why he fell. Yes, please, madam.
le droit administratif reconnaît la notion de piste de fait. Est-ce qu'on rejoint cette notion-là?
According to the law, there's this concept of a factual run.
Oui,
Are you
Monsieur
working on the
Casanova,
basis of that concept?
La notion,
Well, Mr.
le
Casanova,
concept de piste de fait
the
est une
concept of a
notion
factual run is based on
effectivement,
jurisprudence,
été évoquée
case law.
dans un premier temps
This indeed was
par,
mentioned initially
le Conseil d'État, la juridiction
by the
administrative,
Council of State, that is to
qui est
say, the
aujourd'hui une
administrative
juridiction
jurisdiction,
évoquée par les
which is a
juridictions
jurisdiction
judiciaires,
mentioned by
civiles et
the
pénales,
judicial,
y compris
both
par notre cour d'appel,
civil
qui
and
récemment
criminal
encore, y a
courts,
fait référence.
including our own Court of
Alors,
Appeals that
il
recently
s'agit de
referred to that concept.
précisément définir ce qu'est
The
une
point is exactly
piste
to
de fait.
define what is a
Il y a des
factual
critères
run.
de définition.
There are some criteria for definition of such a
Je ne peux
run.
pas les évoquer tous.
I'm afraid I could not possibly go through all of the criteria right now. I would ask you to refer to the online legal sites to see what the criteria are. They're practically the same for all administrative or criminal jurisdictions. As far as I'm concerned, there are some rather important concepts. What defines a ski run and what does not define a ski run. Even before knowing whether we're talking about a factual run or not. Now, in this business of a factual run, obviously we'll be paying the greatest attention to that particular subject. When the time comes, I will tell you exactly what our position is vis-à-vis the case law that I've been referring to. What I can tell you already is that the concept of a run is clearly defined, well established, and recognized by a regulation, which is a decision in the Urban Code, Article R 145.4 of the Urban Code, modified by the law of the 22nd of December 2006. And I will give you the definition. A ski run is an itinerary on the snow that is regulated, packed, marked, protected from danger that is considered to be abnormal or excessive, and prepared for the practice of skiing or any other authorized sliding activity. I will ask you please to refer to this article, and then you will see for yourselves whether or not we're talking about a factual run in these circumstances or not. But again, let me tell you that this question of a factual ski run will be looked into, and the opposite answer will be given when the time comes. Serge Payot from RTL. Do you think that Mr. Schumacher was guilty of imprudence by doing this off-piste skiing? At this stage in the investigation, I shall abstain from answering that question. I'm from Italy. Apparently, his helmet broke, and mention's been made of very high speed, that he was supposed to be skiing very fast. Is there anything you can say about this? Well, there's some confusion that has been spread around between medical terms used by doctors speaking about the kinetics of the shock to the head, that is to say, the speed. That doesn't necessarily mean that you can infer from that anything apart from what the actual medical practitioners meant. As far as we're concerned, we have the footage available, we've seen it, and we shall be seeing it again with the most qualified people, with experts. And if necessary, we will try and specify exactly what that speed could have been. But may I add that the speed is not a particularly important element for us, and particularly not for the decision that we're going to have to take when we come to the end of the investigation. At what time did you actually recover the skis and the camera and the helmet?
Il faut
Well,
un
I
temps
don't
pour procéder à
understand
une enquête, mais je vais demander
the purpose of your
au
question.
directeur d'enquête.
We need some time,
si quelqu'un veut
obviously,
répondre à
for
cette
an
question,
investigation to
pas de
proceed,
raison de ne
but
pas y répondre non plus.
obviously your question is what it is. Let's see whether someone can answer it from our side.
Dans un premier temps, puisque la priorité est donnée aux constatations et puis donc à la médicalisation de M. Schumacher. Donc on est dans une affaire d'accident de ski avec effectivement un skieur qui s'est blessé grièvement. Les enquêteurs ont procédé aux premières.
The investigators proceeded to take hold of the equipment, the helmet, the camera, the skis, at the very beginning of the
Nous avons une
investigation
question,
process.
tout au fond de la salle, madame.
There's another question in the back of the room.
Bonjour, Nicolas Garga, Société de Presse.
Nicolas Gaga from AP.
Justement, dans ce hors-piste pour aller secourir.
At the beginning, we were told that he was on an off-piste section, Mr. Schumacher, in order to give assistance to a friend. Has this been confirmed?
Nous avons procédé à l'audition des membres de la famille.
We heard
Nous n'avons pas
the
procédé à
members
l'audition
of
de
the
tous les
family.
membres.
We haven't heard absolutely everyone yet, but to our knowledge, we haven't had this element provided to us in the course of our investigation.
Il n'y a aucun rapport avec la vidéo.
And that's got no relationship with the camera footage. Well, on the camera footage, you can see whether he was actually helping somebody. You don't see this in the footage. The footage only goes on for 2 minutes. You see his tracks, you see what he's doing, but the actual, what you actually see on this footage is pretty limited.
Bonjour, Antoine Agaz de l'AFP. À ce stade de l'enquête, est-ce que vous envisagez des poursuites pénales?
À ce stade de l'enquête,
At
il
this
n'est
juncture,
pas possible de vous répondre.
it is not possible for me to answer your question.
Oui.
Benoît Garga, France 2. À ce stade de l'enquête, une question, est-ce qu'il peut y avoir, à votre sens, une responsabilité de l'exploitant dans cette affaire?
Dès lors où nous procédons à une enquête,
Well, you
il
know,
peut y avoir des responsabilités, effectivement.
in an investigation, obviously, we try to
Il est encore
establish
trop tôt pour y répondre.
liability, but it is far too early in order to give you an answer.
Alex Olivier, Mont-Blanc. Il y a peu de neige actuellement, notamment sur les extérieurs. On sait que les à côté de la piste étaient à peine recouverts d'un petit peu de neige. Est-ce que vous considérez qu'il s'agit d'une prise de risque?
Perhaps he was skiing, Mr. Schumacher, on a section that was fraught with dangers because the snow there was not packed and was not properly prepared. Answer, well, I cannot give you an answer yet on this.
Dans cette zone-là, je n'en ai
In
pas
that
le
particular
souvenir
area,
précis.
I
On a
do
environ
not
une
think
cinquantaine d'accidents graves.
that there have been too
exposant
many
à des
accidents. We've had some
préjudices
50 serious accidents
par année.
with
Donc, on a
serious bodily injuries per year.
l'habitude de traiter ce genre
So
d'enquête.
we are in the habit, indeed, of carrying out this type
Non,
of
non, sur tout le domaine,
investigation.
il y a 47
All over the area,
stations,
obviously. There's some
dans le
47
ressort,
ski resorts
d'Albertville.
in this area, in the area of
Environ
Albertville.
60%
That
du domaine
represents
skiable
about
des Alpes.
60%
Pour
of
vous
all
donner
of
une
the
idée, nous avons
skiing
une
area
activité
in the Alps.
intense
So as you can see,
en ce
it's
qui
pretty
concerne les
intense
activités
activity
sportives.
that we carry
En
out
fait, nous avons, nous,
in
une
this
activité
area.
intense sur le plan des enquêtes que nous avons
as
à
far as the
mener.
investigations that we are called upon to carry out are concerned.
Vous avez parlé d'une minute de film.
You said that the footage was about 2 minutes long.
Il ne s'est pas arrêté pour secourir
You said that, therefore, in those 2 minutes, he never stopped to help a friend of him that had fallen. You don't
Alors,
see this on the footage.
Il n'y a que 2 minutes de film.
There is only
et
2
nous ne
minutes to
voyons
this
pas
footage, and
secourir qui que ce soit, mais
again,
enfin,
we don't see
peut-être le
him
film
helping anybody.
ne représente
Perhaps
pas la
that
descente
footage
complète.
does
Je
not
ne sais pas
actually
encore.
represent
Nous
the
devons à
whole
nouveau
of
analyser
his
ce film.
descent
Nous
of
allons
that
le
slope.
retranscrire
We're going to
dans
have
un
to look at that
procès-verbal.
film
Et là,
again.
nous aurons tous les éléments.
We will
Et
make
on ne voit pas
a
de
legal
personne
record
ayant
of
un
it, and there we
accident
shall see all the
dans le
elements,
champ de
but
vision de la
we don't
caméra
see in these 2
de,
minutes anybody
Monsieur
falling
Michael
down and Mr. Schumacher rushing to help a friend of his who would have fallen. The GoPro camera
Elle a
only
fourni des
has
images et
images,
également le son qui est
but
celui
does it
de
also
la
have
glisse
sound?
d'une personne
Yes, yes.
sur une neige
Images, and
poudreuse.
also you hear,
Le
obviously,
son
the
dont
sound
il est
of somebody who's
difficile de
going
tirer quelques
down
enseignements, en tout cas pour
powdery
moi. Peut-être
snow.
pour des experts en ski ou en analyse de son, on pourra en tirer quelques éléments.
Perhaps
Si c'est
skiing
possible, bien
experts who
entendu,
know
on
about
les
the
retiendra.
sound made by skis going down powdery snow can come to conclusions that are
Pardonnez-moi,
worthy
j'ai
of
pas compris la
note.
question.
Sorry, I did not understand the question.
Je suis pas en mesure d'y répondre. Je vais demander
Is there
à un
only
des enquêteurs s'il peut
is
nous
there
répondre
only
à la
this
question.
footage available on the GoPro, or is there anything else? Well, I cannot give you an answer yet.
Non, possible.
Alors nous avons saisi la GoPro et la carte.
We have the GoPro. There is a card within that GoPro.
À ce film de 2 minutes qui précède.
And obviously, we've paid particular attention to the 2-minute stretch preceding the fall. But there are other parts of the footage that could be used, but theoretically have nothing whatsoever to do with the fall.
Oui, d'autres questions?
Any other questions?
Excusez-moi, pouvez-vous vous lever, monsieur?
I'm sorry, would you please stand
Parlez
up,
dans le
sir,
micro parce qu'on vous entend
and
pas.
speak into a microphone because we can't hear you. A question on the speed. Was the speed appropriate,
Je crois qu'on vous y a répondu.
considering
Le
the
commandant
nature
Bozo vous a
of
répondu,
the
si vous voulez qu'il vous réponde à nouveau.
slope that he was on? I think that you've already received an answer.
Bonjour, Antoine Agaz de l'AFP. Alors j'ai bien compris que vous ne pouviez pas vous prononcer à ce stade.
Attendez, on va terminer avec la précédente question.
Commander Boston, have you anything to add?
À travers l'évolution de M. Schumacher, on ne précède pas une volonté de prise de vitesse excessive, de dépasser.
It would not seem that Mr. Schumacher was intent on skiing particularly fast or going beyond the speed that was considered to be reasonable for that type of slope.
Je prendrai l'expression d'ondulation, mais plutôt grâce à la ligne de pente qui est assez là pour réduire cette vitesse avec de petites ondulations. Et à un moment donné, il accroche.
The only thing that is clear is that he was going down the slope, theoretically at enormous speed. At one point, the tip of the ski got blocked by a rock, and that propelled him forward. That's when he fell. Let me say that apparently the speed was a kind of normal speed for a confirmed skier.
Non, je crois qu'on est dans l'incapacité de le faire, pour l'instant en tout cas.
But for the time being, we cannot give you any more accurate information than that, any more specific information than that.
J'ai bien compris que vous ne pouviez pas vous prononcer sur d'éventuelles poursuites pénales à ce stade, mais pourriez-vous nous dire
Could you tell us
qu'est-ce qui pourrait les justifier?
If there's going to be any criminal investigation carried out on the basis of what? What
Oui,
would
bon,
the grounds be for that?
S'il y a des poursuites, c'est sur
Well,
la
I
base
see
de
what you
fautes.
mean. If there is any prosecution, it would have to be done on the basis of a fault. Fault of imprudence, not complying with the regulations enforceable, particularly as regards the markings of the slopes. This could be held against the operators of the resort, of the ski resort. We haven't reached that stage at all yet. We've been talking about piste, we're talking about off-piste skiing, we've been talking also about factual runs, about markings and the safety standards. I've told you what I could, considering the information that we have available now. And it's only at the end of the investigation, when we'll be in possession of all of the elements, that we will then broach the subject of liability, which may arise or not. But we are far from that stage yet. For the time being, we're simply gathering the necessary elements for the investigation. How long will the investigation take? Well, we need enough time to carry out all the various testing and analyses that I mentioned before. I will not tell you the exact time that this will take. It will be the necessary and sufficient time, and probably several weeks. You said that all the regulations were complied with? I do not understand how you can already say that the standards were actually all complied with, i.e. that all the markings were in place and were clearly visible. Well, there are some standards. I told you these are French standards that provide for the conditions that must be present where safety is concerned.
You've just been listening to the local prosecutor, Patrick Cancy, there reporting on that tragic ski accident December 29th, where Formula One champ Michael Schumacher hit a stone, getting some serious brain damage. Michael Schumacher is still in an induced coma in the hospital, but today the media spotlight has shifted to this news conference that we've just been covering for you on France 24, a news conference given by the local prosecutor who has been investigating exactly what happened during that accident. Not loads of new information coming out of that press conference. What the prosecutor, however, did confirm is that the French standards of safety were observed and were complied with, even in that off-piste area where Michael Schumacher was skiing. There had been some concern, some controversy growing already that perhaps the paths were incorrectly marked there in Maribel, but they say that it was indeed in keeping with the rules, also that his skis were in good condition. That was not a cause, and there were no concerns about his speed. Everything that would lead one to think that this investigation is pointing towards a tragic accident when Michael Schumacher hit a rock. Again, that is to be confirmed, but that is the feeling that we're getting out of that news conference there in Albertville in the French Alps. All right, let's now take a look at some other news.